Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from DeltiasGaming.com, and Bethesda / ZeniMax Online Studios just got done streaming and previewing the new update 31, Waking Flames Dungeons, and I think you'll be interested in what they showed. They went through the dungeons, gave some indication of what you're going to see, what it's going to look like, but most importantly, if you're like me, new gear sets. The too long didn't read version of this, it's coming out for public testing on July 12th, which will have PC NA character transfers. Then 3 weeks following, it will have PC EU character transfers. So expect this to hit the public test server starting next Monday, July 12th. So what they showed off? They showed off 2 dungeons, one in Glenumbra called Red Petal Bastion, one in Blackwood that doesn't require the chapter, but you have to subscribe or buy the DLC called Dread Cellar. These dungeons, in my opinion, kind of mirror what they did for the Cauldron and Black Drake Villa. The Cauldron was kind of the easier version that was a lot quicker, and Black Drake Villa had a lot more puzzles and 3 hard modes, and they kind of alluded to that in this preview. So the first dungeon up, Red Petal Bastion, again in Glenumbra, looks pretty cool. Kind of reminds me of Veladreth area, sort of Cradle of Shadows in style and mob specifically. What you need to know out of this is there's humanoid armor. There's going to be a new skins that you'll see Finn, the dungeon lead, kind of using on his character, and that's kind of what you're going to get if you complete this. Note he has 2 abilities on his bar. He's using dev command, so he basically can just kill everything at once. So no, you're not going to have this when it goes live. So they gave a little bit of the preview of the dungeon. Really, they kind of showed off, gave a little bit of carrots on the story and so forth. The Twitch video on demand from Bethesda is a link in the description if you wish to watch the whole thing. What I took away from it is usually what I take away from it, which there's going to be new achievements, new collectibles to get, especially if you're doing the trifectas. So the skin markings is the one big one you'll see on Finn's character that he uses, and it's pretty cool. So something like that you might want to collect, though I always have armor on, so I'm not really that interested in it. There's other new things, but really it's the new monster helm and new gear sets that I'm concerned with. And we got a little preview, so I had to clip the images from their video on demand, so it might be a little blurry, but let's go over them. Now, before you freak out, the values are buffed by the developer. So these values, just ignore them. Also, realize it's on the public test server. This hasn't even come to the public test server, so this is subject to change. So before you freak out, subject to change. First gear setup is Silver Rose Vigil Heavy Armor Set, and blocking attack grants you stacks of whatever for 15 seconds. Essentially, you're going to build up these stacks, release a bunch of damage, and apply Major Maim for 12 seconds, reducing target's damage as well. This set will scale off max health, so we don't know what the actual values will be, especially when your health as a tank maybe 45 to 60k, but I imagine this will be an offensive set, primarily probably used for tanks in PvP, I imagine. That Major Maim could be very valuable. Next up is Thunder Caller, so dealing damage with fully charged heavy attack, bolt, dealing shock damage, leaving 4 meter lightning crater for 6 seconds, dealing shock damage every second, so on and so forth. So light armor set coming here. Again, we don't know the value, so I'm sure the math nerds will crunch the numbers on this and see if doing a fully charged heavy attack will outperform some of the other things, but we'll have to test that on the public tester and see what those actual values and how it works. Next up is Grizzly Gourmet. So dealing light attack damage grants you Baker's Delight. This must be a troll set, but when you gain 3 stacks of Baker's Delight, you create a sweet troll next to your target for 5 seconds. If allies touch your sweet troll, both you and your ally gain one of the following effects: restoring health, magic, and stamina, gain in power, gain major force. This effect can occur every 2 seconds. So it's a medium armor set found in Red Petal Bastion. Looks very interesting. And sweet troll, really? So they previewed the monster helm, and the value here, the physical damage, is not indicative of what it really is. So don't freak out when you see that value. The biggest thing is it's going to amplify AoE damage. So they're going to take AoE damage, and it's going to increase their damage taken from area effect abilities by 5%. This effect can occur every 15 seconds, and you're going to get 7 seconds of that AoE damage increase. Again, we're going to have to see the values. This could be a nice monster helm if you're doing tons and tons of AoE, and it might be really worth running here in the future. So good set. Next dungeon up is in Blackwood. Again, Dread Cellar does not require the chapter, but so you can go there or you can port there as long as you own the DLC or subscribe. They kind of showed off a little bit of the dungeon. This looks like the Black Drake Villa equivalent, both in the hard mode mechanics and also the scale and awesomeness of the boss, specifically the last boss. So I imagine this is the one I'm going to want to do over and over and over for the difficulty sake. They showed off you can get a fancy pet. They kind of showed off the stone powers and kind of alluded to the mechanics in the dungeon a little bit. I'm not going to spoil that from you. But it reminded me of Imperial City Prison. They had the jails and kind of the art and assets they used previously. Really reminds me of that dungeon minus kind of the lighting. Again, 3 hard mode mechanics, and you might expect some puzzles or some interesting things, and we'll have to test that out on the live server, but they really alluded to that. So I expect it to kind of mirror what they did with the Cauldron in Black Drake Villa, though I'm just guessing. They even said that one time on the first boss, I think it is, you turn into a goat with ability. So more on that later, the goat dungeon, I guess. But let's talk about the gear and show you what they previewed. First setup is Scorn's Feast. So 5 pieces is a bit complicated. When you deal damage with fully charged heavy attack, you gain this aura for 10 seconds, granting you and 3 other group members a ton of sustain. This has a 20-second cooldown, so you'll have 10 seconds of that up. And if you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, while that's active, essentially back-to-back, consume it and gain overflowing aura for 10 seconds, granting you and 3 other group members 300 weapon and spell damage. That's an interesting set bonus considering the weapon and spell damage is not a part of major and minor courage. So I don't know, it wouldn't be a whole lot of fun for me to send on my healer and do 2 fully charged heavy attacks back-to-back, but it might be possible running it. Rush Agony, 5-piece here. When you deal direct damage with a blink, charge, pull, teleport, blah, 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 you do a lot of damage. Now, again, the values are way different. So I imagine pairing this with Unleashed Terror from Castle Thorn and the VMA 2-hander, and basically you'd have a 1-button stampede build that would hit very hard. This also might be really good for magic bombers as well, so we're going to have to wait and see what those values actually look like. Last setup, I was able to grab Crimson Oath. When you use an ability that applies a major or minor buff to yourself or an ally, you send out a wave of energy, essentially reducing armor for 12 seconds. But note, the armor reduction, 3,500 on the tooltip on this, is not a major or minor buff, so it can stack with those, reducing armor very, very low. Though I don't know if you're going to use that in the current PvE meta. They also previewed a bunch of different combat changes, trying to adjust the time to kill in PvP and some of the stealth mechanics. I'm not going to go through all of that right now because it's a little complex, and we're going to see what those actual changes look like on Monday. So, looks like there's going to be some new juicy PvE, PvP item sets to collect. Looks like there's going to be a lot of combat changes coming up. We're going to get a live glimpse of this on July 12th. I'm going to be streaming it on twitch.tv/DeltiasGaming. I'm going to play a lot of it and try to get those dungeons cleared, probably as a PvE tank, and just see how those new item sets and so forth play out. So hopefully you'll come join me over there. Thanks for watching, and I hope you get something out of this video. Check my website for the latest. And that's a preview. Thanks for watching.